Hello. Long time no read. We are going to continue reading my book, Adventures of the Crown, because it has been a while. I have no excuse. It's just been a while. I keep meaning to, and then I forget. But it's okay. We're good. We're good. Where did we get last time? I believe, had met Elena. So I think that's roughly where we got to. We didn't get very far past that. So, if you're new to my channel, I am an author. I am published. However, most of my books are published with online reading apps. The ones where you have to like pay a certain amount to get coins and then use those coins to unlock chapters. Most of my books are romance. This is one of the few where there's a hint of, but it is not the main focus. This was one of my books before I became a romance author. So it doesn't have a whole lot of romance in it. There is a hint, but not much. If you don't know, I do generally write shonen. I'm going to put it nicely, although it is kind of more towards yaoi, so do with that what you will. This book does have a gape herein, kind of. As I said, it's barely there. The story does not focus on it. That was a kind of conscious choice by me because I didn't want to write smut. I don't know what happened to that choice with every other book I've written, but that was the choice I made for this book. I did not want it to be a smut. I just wanted a fantasy adventure, try and delve into some political things, in the world, not real life political stuff, in world political stuff. And I wanted to see if I could do that with this. So that's why it doesn't focus on the romance. There's not even a kiss in this, so again, barely in there. But I thought I'd preface it because if you haven't read if you haven't come and been with the other chapters here with me, I don't want it to be a surprise for you guys. But yeah, that's basically the intro. Let's get going. During breakfast, Fenring continued to talk with Elena. He asked the usual questions, such as, "How have you been?" and "Was the trip here pleasant?" He also complimented how she had grown into such a lovely young woman. Most of it was small talk, and nothing of any real importance. Lynette noticed how pleasant Fenring acted towards her, stark difference to how he usually acted. Not that he was ever unpleasant towards anyone directly, but his mannerisms were very different. He was not tense, nor did he seem to be holding back any anger or frustration. After eating, Fenring gave Elena a polite kiss on the hand. "I'm sorry that I can't spend more time with you currently. Your father has requested my attention, but I would be honoured to catch up later. In the meantime, Miss Lynette here will be happy to show you around," he said with a gentle smile. "Oh, I understand," Elena said shyly, though she seemed disappointed. She glanced at Lynette timidly, her hands fidgeting together. Are you sure? You don't mind at all?" she asked quietly. Lynette lowered her head respectfully as she said, "It would be a privilege to show you around, my lady." Even at Lynette's soft voice, Elena still seemed unsure and nervous around her. But she complied with the idea of being with Lynette. The two of them walked through some of the halls, with Elena taking the lead, though only barely. How long have you been a knight?" Elena asked softly. Lynette smiled gently, then replied with, I'm not a yet. I'm not a knight yet, my lady. I'm only in training." I'm going to take part in the tournament, and if I win most of my matches, Lord Kvail plans to knight me." Elena nodded lightly. This response had been enough to loosen up some of the young girl's tension, and now she walked next to Lynette. "You seem nice enough. I'm sure Lord Ron saw a lot of potential in you," she offered kindly. "Thank you," Lynette replied. She offered the young girl a gentle smile. Elena began, once more seeming a little nervous. "It isn't true, is it, that you and tilting her head to the side, Lynette gave a puzzled look to Elena. "That me and what?" she asked, curiously. Elena became rather disquieted, and she looked down to the ground. After a moment she whispered, "You and the king are not really lovers, are you?" Lynette was unsure if she should show her offence to the question, or laugh at how absurd it sounded. She cleared her throat, and while trying not to do either, she said, "It is not true. I'm unsure where you heard such a rumour, but I've absolutely no interest in His Majesty." A sigh of relief escaped Lena's lips. She looked back up to Lynette and nodded her head. "I thought it sounded unlike him, but my father..." And there it was. Lynette had a feeling Sethis was behind this. However, she couldn't openly tell Elena that her father was a mule's backside. Instead, she placed a hand gently on Elena's head and said softly, "I have no interest in any human. You need never worry about me. My only desire is to help my people, nothing more." "My father enjoys lying, it seems," Elena said softly. She looked about nervously before looking back to Lynette. You won't tell him I said that, will you?" "Not on my life," Lynette replied, though something bothered her a little. "Lady Elena, please do not think you must answer my question, but..." She paused, thinking on how to phrase her words. "But it almost feels as though you do not get along with your father much." Elena shifted anxiously on the spot, then nodded shyly. Truthfully, "I rarely see him," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Had Lynette's hearing not been better than a human's, she likely wouldn't have heard her. "I see. I am sorry to pry like I did," Lynette offered kindly. She wondered if Elena spent most of her time with her mother, or if there was some other reason. If she merely avoided her father, then Lynette could hardly blame her. The man was a horrid person. Elena shook her head swiftly. It is fine. I know my father says some..." She paused, considering her words. "Questionable things. I try not to think much about them, but..." "He is your father. It is only natural that you would want to trust him," Lynette said, softly patting Elena's head in comfort. This seemed to please Elena, and she smiled up at Lynette shyly. Lynette returned the smile with one of her own, then said, "Would you like to see the gardens? It might be a bit more relaxing." Yes, please," Elena said with a smile. "Are the cherry trees bloom?" she then asked hopefully. "They were my mother's favourite, so I'd like to see them." "I think so, yes," Lynette said with some thought. It was spring now, so she assumed most things were in bloom, though upon hearing that blossoms were Elena's mother's favourite, she realised that the young girl had no mother. Now she wondered who Elena spent time with, if not with her father. Perhaps she had a nanny or such. She heard some nobles did that with their children, allowing someone else to raise their kids. It seemed strange to her. Why have children if you do not want to spend time with them? "Do you miss her?" Lynette asked softly as they began to walk down the hall again. "I never met her, so I don't know," Elena said quite softly. "She died giving birth to me." "I'm so sorry," Lynette offered. She felt awful now. Shaking her head swiftly, Elena said, "You did not know?" The young girl smiled up at Lynette and then said, "Though I like to pretend I know what she was like. She was probably very kind and beautiful." "Does your father talk about her at all?" Lynette asked. Elena shook her head again. "No, I don't think he loved her very much. He only cares about coins and how rich he can become," she said bitterly. "Oh." Elena seemed a little sad again. but said nothing more on the topic. She kept her gaze downwards as she walked. Lynette remained quite herself now, not wishing to stick her nose further into the young girl's affairs. If Elena wanted to talk, then she expected she would. As they neared the end of the hallway, a slightly older woman came towards them from the opposite direction, followed by 2 servant girls. Elena had not seemed to notice at all. Lynette made room for the other woman to pass them by, but something bothered her. She had a vague notion that she had seen this woman before, but could not place where or when. As they neared the woman, Elena finally looked up. She faltered for only a second when the older woman barged past her, deliberately knocking Elena to the ground as she passed. Seems they will let any demon into the castle lately, the woman scoffed, as she peered down at Elena with scorn. She wrinkled her nose, then continued on her way, the 2 serving girls snickering as they followed her. Lynette could not believe what she had seen, her reaction a little delayed out of shock. "What a horrid woman," she said, placing her hands on her hips. Her lips thinned in annoyance. Then she turned to help Elena back to her feet. "Are you all right, my lady?" she asked softly. The young girl seemed distressed, but nodded meekly. "I'm fine," she said, refusing the aid. She shied away from Lynette's touch, once more becoming anxious and timid. She seemed on the verge of tears, but held them back as best as she was able. "Who does that woman think she is, anyway? That's no way to treat anyone at all." "I have half a mind to go and give her a piece of my mind," Lynette growled in anger. "Oh, please don't," Elena exclaimed, her voice louder than usual. "That was the Queen Mother. She'll have your head if you do." The Queen... Lynette's words trailed off. So that's why she recognized her. Of course, all of the paintings of her had been when she was much younger, so that was Fenrin's mother. Truthfully, Lynette had expected her to be much more like Fenrin, a little soft, but kind and compassionate. It was obvious that Fenrin took after her a great deal in looks. The woman's blonde hair and blue eyes matched his, even if they were aged by time. Elena gave a long sigh, then shook her head. "Do not worry about it. I am accustomed to her treating me this way," she admitted, shifting nervously. "That is hardly a good thing," Lynette said, narrowing her eyes disapprovingly, though she could not keep the frustration on her face for long. Elena's gloomy expression made the young girl look pathetic. Surely, she would want the best for her son, so it makes no sense to treat you badly. You're her future daughter-in-law, for goodness sake. "She has been this way for a long time," Elena said softly, her eyes scanning the end of the hallway for spies. She then turned to Lynette. Her expression said everything she needed to convey. She wanted to get out of the castle. Now. Nodding, Lynette showed the young girl out to the garden. Once alone, she finally asked, "So why does she treat you so badly? I thought His Majesty's parents wanted the marriage." Lynette hoped Elena did not catch her accidental slip there. Elena shifted nervously but seemed not to notice the blunder at all. She then moved over to the fountain. Her golden eyes peered back at her from the reflection in the water. "She wasn't always this way," she began, attempting to smile a little. "But after a while, things changed, and she began to hate me." "But why? I'm afraid I don't follow it at all," Lynette said, glancing back to the castle. From where she stood, was it because of your father, or... Raina interrupted quickly with, "I thought those who joined the knights were trained in matters like this," she asked, her fingers fidgeting with her necklace. Lynette's attention returned to the young girl. At first she gave a puzzled look. Then she noticed something that that should have been blatantly obvious to her from the start. "Silver? So then you..." She trailed off. Suddenly so much more made sense. Why Fenrin was reluctant to marry, but why he couldn't just call it off either. Why Elena did not spend much time with her father. Why the Queen Mother called her a demon. Not even mentioning Elena's father trying to push for the marriage so much. He wanted his daughter to be queen before Fenrir could find a way around it. So you do know, Elena said with a nod. When the Queen Mother found out, she was so angry. So she took it out on me every time she and Fenrir came to visit. I'm so sorry. It could not have been easy on you at all, Lynette offered, though she knew her words could do little more than comfort the young girl. Elena seemed a little surprised at Lynette's reaction. My people view magic differently, Lynette explained quickly. I do not fear you or your magic. That must be why they asked me to take care of you today, she thought aloud. Elena laughed a little. I shall thank the king and Lord Vaughan properly later then. I'm so afraid of the knights. They think all magic is dangerous, and although none of them have noticed, there is always that chance. That is why my silver was turned into jewellery. It would not be strange for the daughter of silversmith to wear such luxury items, she said, seemingly coming out of her shell. Lynette smiled softly at the young girl. She was glad to see Elena smiling. Even with all the downsides in life, she was still able to feel joy. So no one except your father, Lord Vaughan, His Majesty, and the Queen Mother knows about your abilities? Oh, and me now, I suppose, she asked. Elena nodded. It is kept secret. The other nobles would not be happy if they found out that I had magic. No one with magic should ever be given the throne, or positions of power. We can still live mostly normal lives, such as having jobs during times of peace, or visiting family. Most live in the Guild of Magic, though, since it is safer for us there. But I still live with my father in my father's estate, Elena said softly. To continue the illusion that you are not a mage? Lynette questioned. Elena nodded again. The only rule is that we must have at least one knight with us at all times. Mine are usually disguised as normal guards, though. Elena continued to explain. I'm surprised. I always thought the king locked you all up, only letting you out to fight in times of war, Lynette admitted. I also thought, maybe, that they put you through harrowing trials before even allowing you to do that. But I guess I let my imagination run a little wild. Elena laughed a little. The king advised against dangerous trials, though I suppose he was not king at the time, she said, rocking back and forth on her heels. Oh, right. He did mention that. Not long after we met up. And until then, people with magic were simply killed, correct? And he convinced his brother to use them as war assets instead, which in turn created the guild, Lynette said, recounting Fenrir's story. Elena nodded her head. There is vigorous training to ensure we do not allow ourselves to be easily possessed. But that is what the silver is also for. While we wear it, we cannot cast spells. But neither can we be possessed. If we take it off to cast, then we must be careful. But with our training, we are much safer than those without any training, she explained, sitting on the fountain's edge. Giving Elena's words some thought, Lynette tapped a finger upon her lips. So those who do not know about the silver have no idea people are able to use magic? That is not always the case. Elena began as she swung her legs back and forth. You see, when we use magic, our eyes change colour, depending on the element behind the spell. So fire-based magic makes our eyes red, wind skills are green, earth brown, and so on. So if you use magic, even if you do so subtly, people might notice that and figure it out. Oh, I did not know about that. His Majesty never mentioned it, Lynette said with a blink of wonder. It probably seemed obvious to him that he just forgot. Do you people not have that happen? Elena asked softly, and Lynette shook her head. Oh, I wonder why. Lynette explained to Elena what Fenrir had told her about the differences in magic, and why human magic was more dangerous than that of her own people. Afterwards, the two continued to discuss the differences in magic between their people, most of the late morning and early afternoon. And that, my dear fellows, is the end of the chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And you may or may not have noticed, I did reference a little bit of Dragon Age in there. I thought I'd be sneaky. So yeah, you can probably tell that I did have a couple of inspirations while writing the story, but I didn't want to obviously blatantly copy Dragon Age, because that's a no bueno. That's not funny. So I wanted to be. I was inspired, but I didn't want to directly copy because that's sad. But yeah, I do like leaving little references. Like the whole whenever Lynette says that her ears do more than just frame her face and things like that. That's a Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z reference. I think I've referenced the Last Unicorn at some point. Maybe I think that's later in the book, though. So I've snuck a few references in here and there, but nothing obviously blatantly ripped off. I've got to show my nerdiness off somewhere. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, feel free to let me know. Leave a like, comment down below, and until next time, my fellows, I'll see you later. Bye. You know you want to like and subscribe because you love this content.